Just recently, the NBA has released something that could shake up discussion around the world involving the NBA players. But what is this, and how is it going to affect the sport going forward? Well, stay tuned because today we'll be discussing will Nikola Jokic crack the NBA's list of 75 greatest players in 75 years. Let's get into it. What is this list? So first of all, what exactly is this list? If you didn't know already, the NBA has just introduced something really cool into the world of the sport. To rank the top players of the sport, they have just now introduced the top 75 players in 75 years list. This list will rank the top players in the sport who have been involved within it over the last 75 years. This list doesn't mean who is the best player right now. It's going to be ranking the most recent players in that time period. This means that even someone who's dead or someone who left the sport decades ago could be very high up on this list. The top 75 players over the past 75 years list is going to help fans debate who should be crowned as the best player and to create some more natural discussion around the sport. It's always good for the NBA to create some discussion as it gets the fans interested in the sport even more than usual. They're doing this to artificially create some more interest in the sport and to let the world know what players they respect and recognize as some of the best in the history of the sport. This list was introduced because of the 75th anniversary of the sport and will be a great symbol of how the sport has changed over the years. Will the NBA recognize those who people love, or will they fall flat on which players people resonate with? Where did this list come from? Another huge question is, where did this list come from in the first place? Well, actually, they have had a very similar list in the past, but for a different reason. This list is because of the 75th anniversary of the sport and its players, but the previous one was due to the 50th year anniversary. All the way back in 1996, there was a very similar list put out into the world because of this amazing anniversary. This list compiled an amazing list of the greatest 50 players over the past 50 years of the sport at that time. The list was dedicated to the league's amazing history and had some of the best players in history inside of its ranks. It was from Bill Russell to George Mikan to Magic Johnson and of course to Michael Jordan. This list really tied the league back to its history and its roots and celebrated those who really pioneered the sport of basketball. Some of the decisions were even questionable at the time, but at the end of the day, it's really hard for the NBA to create this list because of the pure talent that this sport has had over the years. In the end, they created the list that will be cemented in history. So, now in 2021, they're creating this list with an additional 25 players because of the 25 years that have passed since the original list. So, who should be on this list? Whilst it is looking like the original list might change around a little bit to make room for the new players for 75 years, there are some players who are more than deserving to be on this list. So, who should be on this list? Just like it was with the original list back in 1996, there's going to be a really tough selection of people who have to pick between some of the most influential and best players over the past few years. Some standouts for this new list are Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, and obviously the late Kobe Bryant. Kobe's easily the most deserving player on the list and should be near the top. The project will most likely be dedicated to him in some way as well. Let's hope that they don't do him dirty in this new list. All these players we just mentioned are more than likely to show up on the list as they're seasoned players who've had some amazing careers. There are even a few players that just didn't have the time to make the original list because they had just been drafted at the time. 25 years later, and they should now have the chance to appear on this awesome list. But who could be one of the most controversial picks for this list? Don't go anywhere because we're diving into this and more now. Could Nikola Jokic make his way onto this list? One player who's in the minds of many is someone who could cause a huge controversy if he's placed onto this list, but he deserves a spot. So could Nikola Jokic make his way onto this list? Nikola Jokic is easily one of the better players right now, but has only had 6 years in this sport under his belt. He's the current MVP and superstar who has yet to win a championship, though he has only been awarded 3 All-Star and 3 All-NBA teams. So many people are arguing that he deserves a place on the list for what he has accomplished, though some disagree and don't want him anywhere near this new list. It's a large proportion of fans that really want him to take place. The entire ethos of the NBA is to preserve legacy and celebrate its history. So So one huge obstacle will have to come up when putting Nikola Jokic on this new list. That is removing an old all-star player from the list to make room for him. The NBA really wants to preserve their prestigious history and make sure legacy is a huge part of everything. So it's a concern as to whether the voters would even consider taking a legend off of this list to fit someone who has only played for around 6 years in the NBA. So many believe that they should because it's for the future of the sport, but what do you think? Let us know down below. Why specifically does Nikola Jokic deserve a spot on this list? So now that we've covered what could happen around Nikola Jokic being added to this new list, why exactly does he deserve a spot on this list? We know he's an amazing player, but what has he done to deserve a spot on such a prestigious list? When it comes to NBA history, there are 3 categories for what players are best in. Some will specialize in scoring, some will specialize on the glass, and some will specialize on being the best passer possible. This is how they get into the history books and make a name for themselves. But what they don't have, something Nikola does. He just happens to be one of the only people in history who really excels at all 3 and at a high level. He has impacted the control of so many games because he can do such a thing that so many other greats cannot. This alone makes him available for a spot on this amazing list. But there's something else. Even if he's so good at this and has made a huge mark on the NBA with a short time there, he isn't the best player in the world. He won't be in the top 3 of this list, but he still deserves a spot. He has had such an amazing NBA career so far, and this would really make him something special. What are the criticisms of Nikola Jokic? To end off this list, we're going to go over some of the big criticisms people have over Nikola Jokic and the reasons why they believe he shouldn't get a place on this list. So what are these criticisms? One of the major ones that everyone brings up is his time in the NBA. He doesn't have the most experience as he's only been playing professional for the NBA for around 6 years now. Though his stats are great and his playing is phenomenal, he doesn't have the record of these greats. He doesn't have the longevity in him that these guys have proven that they have. The greats showed us that they were amazing, but also consistent with it. They kept it all up for years and years. Whilst we say that Nikola Jokic is amazing now, what about in 5 more years? He could have fallen off and his longevity might not be there. It's a tough decision to place someone so new onto such a prestigious list, but at the end of the day, it's up to the voters. If they want to see him on the list, they'll try their hardest to get him there. So, what do you think about Nikola Jokic being added to this list? Do you agree that he has shown enough promise to get his name on it, or do you think he needs more time? Let us know in the comments below. That's the end of the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on. Thanks for watching. Bye.